If I were to ask you to name every single armored vehicle in Grand Theft Auto Online, you might think, oh, there's probably 30, 40 vehicles that are armored. Well, that's what I thought when I had today's video idea pop into my mind. I was like, oh, this will be a fun little video where I'm going to go into all the armored vehicles in the game, talk about their capabilities, characteristics, and what I personally think about them. What actually ended up happening is I just spent the last 4 hours lining up every single armored vehicle, because once you go down the rabbit hole, you realize just how many there are. I have not gone to sleep at all today, and it's currently 7:56 in the morning. So, if you do enjoy this type of content, please consider smashing that subscribe button down below. As I said, we have every single armored vehicle lined up, at least that I could remember or think of. So I'm sure there are going to be people in the comments saying, oh my god, how could you miss my favorite vehicle, or whatever. And if I did, I apologize. Let me know, and I will pin the vehicles that I missed in the comments, or maybe I'll make a follow-up video. But to the most part, I think I got 99% of them that were able to pop into my brain after sleep deprivation. So, what are we going to do in today's video? I'm going to be going over all the armored vehicles, their capabilities, and whether I think they are worth the price. Starting off, we have some of the most basic armored vehicles in the game, and these are just literally armored vehicles. If you make your way over to a website like Legendary Motorsports, scroll to 4-door, and you sort by price, you can see something like the Benefactor Shafter V12. And if you check on the armored option for $325,000, you can get the armored variant, and we can actually see the Shafter V12 right here. So these are the basic armored variant vehicles. They have two things going for them. First of all, they all feature semi-bulletproof glass, which is really, really cool. I mean, you can test this for any one of the cars that we've lined up here. As we can see, each and every one, apart from, I guess, the armored Kuruma, has semi-bulletproof glass, which is really nice. It means that if you are dealing with AI, or, you know, any type of mission, or even you're in a public session and you're a newer player and you don't want to deal with somebody killing you, this glass will be able to survive a decent amount of damage before you're able to cut through. The only thing you do want to keep in mind is if you are actually inside of the vehicle and you try to shoot at somebody from outside, you will break the glass. As we can see, I'm shooting out of that front glass, and, well, actually it didn't break it, but 90% of the time when you shoot through that front glass, it's going to break it. I don't know if the game bugged or something there. So, what armored vehicles do we actually have here? Well, starting off, we have one that you can't purchase, which is the Paragon R Armored. This vehicle is only accessible if you do the Miss Baker storyline after purchasing a casino penthouse. It's actually one of my favorite armored vehicles in the game. However, another Paragon was added into the game, which kind of defeats the purpose of the vehicle. Overall, the Paragon R is a fantastic vehicle. It's fast, it's maneuverable, and I would definitely say out of all the armored variants, there's really only one that holds competition, and that's the Shafter V12, which we'll be breaking into in just a moment. The other capability that these vehicles feature is the ability to survive one explosion. The second one will blow it up. That means you can survive a sticky bomb, a grenade, an RPG, anything like that. These vehicles you'll be able to survive one of, which is nice. If you're a new player, $300,000 for an armored variant vehicle is actually really inexpensive, so the fact that you can get any of these for super cheap is actually pretty solid. The only one that's a little harder to get is the Paragon, but it is a gift vehicle, so technically it doesn't even cost any money once you get your hands on it. That also brings us to what I classify as an armored vehicle. A lot of people are obviously going to have their own opinions on what they think is armored, if it has armored glass or this or that. It's very simple. I consider vehicles to be armored that can survive an explosion. Now, the Kuruma is an outlier, and that is because of the fact of its bulletproof glass, which we'll be breaking into. But apart from the armored Kuruma, every single vehicle in today's list can survive at least one explosion, and that is what I consider to be armored. So some of the weaponized vehicles, like the Deluxo and the Scramjet or the Vigilante, will not be making the list. So with that aside, these are all the armored vehicles. We have the Benefactor XLS, we have the Gallivanter Baller, and then the extra large variant of the Baller. They're basically the exact same ones, just a little bit larger, as you can see on the rear end. Then we have the Inus Cognoscenti 55 and the Inus Cognoscenti. Honestly, I really don't know the differences between these two vehicles. Maybe one's a little longer. Yeah, it looks like definitely the base Cognoscenti is quite a bit longer. But in general, again, basically the same vehicle. We have the Shafter V12 and then the Shafter the V12 extra large wheelbase. Again, the extra large wheelbase is just a little bit bigger. I would always recommend to get the smaller variant, especially because the Shafter V12 is actually the fastest of the armored variant vehicles in the game. It goes 124 miles per hour, which is great, especially when you realize that it's a four-seater. It's actually one of the best armored vehicles in the game, and while it may not have as much survivability as an Imani Tech car, I still absolutely love the look of it, and I'd love if Rockstar gave it some liveries. And that brings us to two final vehicles. First of all, we have the weaponized limousine, and the turreted limo is pretty basic. It's got the same characteristics as all the other armored vehicles. It can survive one explosion, and it has a minigun mounted on the roof. It's nothing spectacular, but it's kind of cool. The armored Kuruma is the only outlier here, and that is because the armored Kuruma cannot survive any explosions. What it can do is survive basically everything when it comes to bullets. If you were to take a 50 cal minigun and shoot any of the armored vehicle's glass, as we can see, it doesn't matter if it's a fresh panel, it will cut right through. That is not the case for the armored Kuruma. Even though it looks like these shells are cutting right through the glass, that is actually not the case, and it's impossible to die while driving an armored Kuruma, which is actually really, really cool. So yeah, it can't survive any explosions, but I think it earns the armored slot due to the fact it's one of the best mission vehicles in the game. Now we have some big ol' boys. We have the Insurgent and Insurgent Pickup Custom. The only difference between these two is one of them is able to be upgraded inside of your own personal vehicle quarters. That is why I just wanted to kind of throw both here. The Insurgent's a pretty cool vehicle. It's around $670,000 if I'm not mistaken. It survives upwards of 27 explosions, which is ridiculously crazy, but as we can see, it does not feature any armored glass, unlike the rest of the armored variant vehicles. But obviously, being able to survive many more explosions is a huge advantage, but you are going to have to sacrifice some speed. Then we have the Insurgent Pickup Custom. Once again, this glass is nothing special, and your bullets will cut directly through it, as we can see, so that is nothing unique. The advantages of the Insurgent Pickup Custom over the base one is, first of all, you have a minigun on the top. You also have the ability to drop proximity mines, which will blow up if somebody drives over them. Those two capabilities are really nice. Apart from that, I can't say there's too much difference between the vehicles, but obviously the Pickup Custom looks way cooler, so that's also a big old dub. I really like the Insurgent Pickup Custom. It's just not the fastest, so I don't really mess around all too much with it. Next up, we have the Menacer, which is one of the goofiest vehicles in the game. I kind of like the look of it, I'm not gonna lie. I know a lot of people hate the look. I think it kind of looks like a Jeep that was heavily mutilated, but I like the look. The problem is it doesn't really have much going for it. First of all, just like the Insurgent, it does not feature any bulletproof glass anywhere. The other thing that's a little mediocre about the vehicle is that, unlike the Insurgent Pickup Custom, it does not have the ability to drop proximity mines. So it's kind of just a worse Insurgent Pickup Custom, but it does look really cool. So that's what I'll say. It's also a little bit cheaper, so I guess that's kind of cool, but in general, it's pretty mediocre. Get the Insurgent Pickup Custom over it. We arrive to the Zaba, which again is pretty mediocre. It's kind of cool with the fact that it has wheels that are filled with air, which I know aren't all wheels filled with air. Yes, but these ones are huge wheels that are filled with air. And because of that, you have the ability to literally drive this vehicle in the water, and it floats like a boat, which is pretty sick. It also features semi-bulletproof glass, unlike the other three armored vehicles. It can also survive upwards of 27 homing missiles. What's the problem with the Zaba? Well, it's the fact that it is incredibly slow compared to the Insurgent Pickup Custom and basically all the other armored vehicles. Yeah, we can see that this thing is not going to be setting any land speed records. It's fun to drive, it's kind of fun to mess around with because of the way it turns and the way the wheels work and everything, but it's one of the slowest vehicles in the game, and I really just can't see any world where I would recommend people to buy this. It's cool, but cool is not much of a selling point unless you're, I guess, just wanting to get it, to add it to your collection. But yeah, I really wouldn't say to get your hands on the Zaba personally. Also, I'm stuck on the vehicle. Let's jump over that window. Okay, well now we have one of my favorite armored vehicles, which is the half-track. The half-track is epic. First of all, it's got this amazing machine gun on the back, which has the ability to literally devastate anything in front of you. Even if you are in an armored vehicle, the half-track's anti-aircraft weapon is just insane. It gets even better because the fact that the frontal glass on this vehicle is completely bulletproof. It works exactly the same as the armored Kuruma. You might say, oh wait, aren't you just driving like right through the glass here? But notice how the bullets are actually breaking on glass versus if you're shooting through this, the bullets don't have any sparks. They're cutting right through and then they're actually hitting the vehicle. We can see they're actually going into that back glass there. Where this vehicle, if we shoot through here, we can see that we are not hitting the glass on the side door here, and if we shoot this glass, it will shatter. So it's actually pretty freaking epic. The weaponized half-track is awesome. Not only that, but it is really hard to take out due to 27 homing missiles needing to blow it up. Oh, and it also drops proximity mines. The only downside is that it's much slower than the Menacer, the Insurgent Pickup Custom, or the Insurgent. So that's really your big downside. But if you don't mind the speed, it's one of the most dangerous vehicles in the game. We have the APC, which is kind of a slightly faster variant of the half-track. The APC I actually love. It's got this insanely dangerous missile battery on the roof, which you can literally decimate people with, and it can also drive in water, and it's pretty fast for what it is. Features very good protection in general. However, the glass is not bulletproof, so that is something you should keep in mind. Be a little careful. But in general, I love the APC. It doesn't survive as many explosions as the rest. I think it's like 8 homing missiles or 10 homing missiles, but in general, it's still a beast. It's still really fun to mess around with, and I think it's one of the best armored vehicles in the game. We have the Kanjali, which is obviously a tank. I was going to put the Rhino tank in today's video, but it's not really a personal vehicle, so I don't think it counts. The Kanjali is a very, very strong tank. It can survive around 8 to 10 homing missiles. It has multiple different weapons on it. You've obviously got the main rail cannon, which is super, super dangerous. You also have a top-mounted machine gun. You have 2 grenade launchers on the side, and you can drop proximity mines. It's also decently fast. I mean, it's not incredibly fast, but it looks sick. It's very fun to mess around with, and in general, I have no complaints about the Kanjali. I just wish that it had a missile lock-on jammer. If it did, it would be amazing, but unfortunately, it doesn't have that. I know a lot of people love tanks and stuff. I do too, but I just feel like in GTA, when you can drive something like the half-track or even the APC and have a much more dangerous weapon on a much more mobile vehicle that can drive in the water, I'd choose this one over this one, but that's how I personally see it. We now have a little vehicle in the list, which is the only free one to get your hands on, and that is the Duke O' Death. To get your hands on the Duke O' Death, you go over to Warstock, sort by price, and there it is, free. Everybody has access to it, and it's an incredibly fun vehicle. It's surprisingly fast at around 100 and I think 7-ish miles per hour. Not only that, but it features ridiculously good protection against bullets. The engine scoop here takes bullets. The actual frame of the vehicle, we can see all that metal does not get cut through, and it can also survive upwards of 6 homing missiles when you are inside. So pretty sweet, actually, and I can't complain all too much about it. Now we arrive to some of the goofy vehicles, which are the Arena War. First of all, we got this big ol' Arena War vehicle here. I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember the name. It's something weird. Yeah, the Future Shock Bruiser. The Future Shock Bruiser is cool. It's got, you know, some speed boosts you can use on it, which actually do allow it to get up to a pretty quick speed, and the plow on the front is really, really fun to flip people off the road with. But in general, it's a very large vehicle. I can't say there's much I love about it, but I own one. This is what my personal one looks like, so I guess if you wanted to have a massive limo that was then turned into a ramming beast, it's not a bad shout. We have the Imperator. This is my personal Imperator as well. By the way, I should mention none of these vehicles feature bulletproof glass whatsoever, as we can see, so something to keep in mind. All of them can survive upwards of 3 explosions, except for the tank, which I think can do more like 7 or 8, but for the most part, they're surviving around 3 explosions, like the Imperator. Imperator's fun. It's definitely one of my more preferred vehicles. It's quick. It's got little EMP mines you can shoot out of the back, or I think that maybe they're kinetic mines, but it's still pretty cool. You can also drop EMP mines out of these vehicles, slowing and stopping anything that drives behind you. Much better than slick mines, so I actually really, really like the Imperator. We have the Sasquatch, and the Sasquatch is easily one of my favorite vehicles in the game. I mean, look at this thing. How can you hate it? First of all, it can survive like 5 explosions, which is kind of crazy. But the Sasquatch is just a beast. It's incredibly fast because of the fact it has a rocket boost. And just look what it can do to this poor car. I mean, thing is insane. It sends vehicles flying. It also has a jump, which is kind of insane. Yeah, the Sasquatch is just an absolutely incredible vehicle, and yeah, I can tell you that it's one of my favorite armored vehicles in the game. If you want to have some fun, the Sasquatch is an absolute must-buy, especially, again, because of the fact it can also survive multiple explosions. You just have such a fun time in it. I'm really glad that Rockstar added this into the game. It's basically a personal monster truck, which is absolutely epic. We have a little desert tank here. I really like this tank. It's nothing crazy, the Scarab. It's got a plow, which I guess is kind of cool, but it's not very fast. And let's be honest, it's one of the worst tanks in the game. The only thing I like about it is that it is the fastest tank. I mean, that's pretty cool. And again, the plow does work, which is kind of cool, but you can see the problem is that the plow isn't low enough to the ground to really launch things. So, I don't know. It's all right. It's not anything special, but if you want a tank to drive around, it's kind of cool, I guess. I don't know. I really can't make much of a case to buy this vehicle. It's pretty mediocre in most situations. It's good at off-roading because it's got a lot of torque, but yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't really recommend to buy it personally. Then we arrive to my favorite of all the Arena War vehicles. This comes in a close second, but I love the ZR380. First of all, I just think it looks amazing. It's obviously based off of some sort of Nissan Fairlady. I think it looks amazing, but not only that, it has a plow, which allows you to launch vehicles in the air. It's incredibly fast, driving over 140 miles per hour when using the rocket boost on it, and it has completely bulletproof glass. It's the only arena vehicle, but yeah, the entire front of this vehicle is completely impossible to take out, which is huge. I mean, the only other vehicle in the game that really has this capability is the half-track and the armored Kuruma. The advantage with this is that it's maneuverable, it's obviously really good looking, and it can survive upwards of 3 explosions, which is huge. So I really, really enjoy playing around with the ZR380. It is still my favorite armored vehicle in the game. But oh boy, we got some big boys coming up next, some big old boys. Starting off, we have the Phantom Hauler, and this thing is incredible. It does have semi-bulletproof glass, as we can see, which is really nice. And something else that's cool is that, you know, normally when it comes to the semi-bulletproof glass, like if we make our way all the way over here, you know, for the most part, these vehicles, the glass panels are only one panel. So we can see shooting at like the front of the Enos Cognoscenti here. Once you shoot through that panel, it's gone. But what's cool about the hauler is that each pane is separately armored. So if you shoot at this pane here and you break it, that's not this pane, and this one can still survive a little bit longer, which is actually really cool, and it means that you're going to just be a lot tankier to clear. This vehicle can survive upwards of a monstrous 70 homing missiles, 69 homing missiles to be exact, before it blows up, which literally makes it the most robust vehicle in the game. It's also surprisingly fast at over 102 miles per hour on top speed. It really is just an incredible choice to mess around with. It's super easy to call out, and I can tell you for a fact that if you're not using the Phantom Hauler, you should be. It's incredible. Then we have the Terabyte. Once again, same semi-bulletproof glass. However, this thing features a huge glass panel, so it's very easy to shoot the driver right in the head when they're driving it, unlike this vehicle here where it's a lot smaller to actually aim at. The Terabyte does feature some cool capabilities, like a legit missile launching silo in the back of it that you can control. It also has a little drone station. It's a little bit faster than some of the other bigger armored vehicles, but in general, I don't love the Terabyte that much. I think it can survive upwards of like 30, 40 homing missiles, so it's still a beast, but I personally would still be going with the hauler. I would say the biggest advantage the Terabyte has is the fact that it has the homing missiles inside of it, and you can store your Oppressor Mark II in it, which means you can literally fly it out whenever you want, which is also really, really epic. So yeah, I really like the Terabyte. It's not my favorite, but it is still a very well armored vehicle. This is a vehicle I forgot about, so I managed to add it in a little bit later in the list, and that would be the Nightshark. The Nightshark is really fun. It's basically the best version of all the armored vehicles over here. The Nightshark is the fastest compared to the Insurgent Pickup Custom and the Insurgent or the Menacer, And I think it looks the best. I mean, you can't deny it. This thing looks freaking amazing. It doesn't have any proximity mines or anything, but it's very fast, very maneuverable, and it is just an absolute beast to mess around with. Again, being able to survive upwards of 27, 26 homing missiles. So it's pretty dang incredible. The armor panel on the front does work. This little bottom panel does actually work a bit. However, the glass itself is not bulletproof at all, so a little disappointing. It's not too hard to die in the vehicle against gunfire, but against anything with missiles, it's a really good choice. Then we arrive to the Brigade 6x6, which is the newest of the big baddie boy armored vehicles. Once again, does feature that same bulletproof glass until you shatter through it, and not only that, it's a legit business, which is kind of cool. But we don't care about the business, we actually care about how many explosions this thing can survive, which is a whopping, I think it's around 50 explosions. It's not as many as the hauler, but the advantage is that this vehicle is quite a bit faster, and it's actually a bit more maneuverable. Also, this plow actually works. Like, it works really well. If there are vehicles in front of you, they're not going to be in front of you for much longer. So because of that, I actually really like the Brigade 6x6. Before we break into the Brute, let's also talk about the big ol' Cerberus. The Cerberus is kind of cool. I mean, it can't survive too many explosions. I think it's like 5 or 6. But it's really large and really slow. My favorite part about the Cerberus is that it has a flamethrower. I mean, how can you hate a vehicle that has a legit flamethrower? I, at some point, definitely want to make a video on this vehicle because, I mean, that's freaking epic, right? It's so cool that you can literally just use a flamethrower and go flame on and light a vehicle on fire. So, that's pretty cool. Apart from the flamethrower, though, I can't really say there's too much about the Cerberus I love. It looks cool. It's obviously a Mad Max-style vehicle, but I can't really recommend the buy it unless you want to drive up to somebody and flamethrower them. We have some more of the Arena War vehicles that I added that I don't personally own. We have the Dominator. This one's kind of cool, actually. You've got the shield on the back, which basically blocks you from all damage, and then let's say somebody's driving behind you. You can actually launch the shield at them, which can absolutely send their vehicle flying off the road and give you a little bit more speed. So that's actually really, really cool. We have the crap, my brain dies. Is this the Imperator? It's not the Imperator, is it? It's the Impaler, that's what it is. Yeah, we already went over the Imperator. The Impaler is pretty cool. We can see that it has actually very well armored glass. The entire front of this vehicle, apart from these little slits, is completely bulletproof. You can cut through the slits, but apart from that, this vehicle is completely bulletproof on the glass, which means you're just not able to kill the person driving it. When you pair that with the fact it's fairly maneuverable, and I walked into the spikes on the ISI, but in general, very cool vehicle. I really like its capabilities, so I can't really hate on it all too much. It's a little mediocre. A lot of the Arena War vehicles have the same issues where they suck at handling, and that can be a little bit disappointing for a lot of people. Personally, I don't mind it too much because you do get insane speeds, so it's not that big of a deal for me, and if you put off-road tires on them, they handle a lot better. So we have the weaponized Arena War ISI here. I really like the look of the ISI, but I have to be careful to not walk into any of those spikes or I will die. That is a little bit of an annoying thing. The ISI is the cheapest Arena War vehicle. The plow does work on the front, which is really cool, and not only that, but it's still pretty fast, so it's a really fun vehicle to mess around with. I can't say that like it's anything busted, but yeah, it's fun. So that's about all I can say. And then we finish off with the Future Shock Slam Van here. This thing's real goofy looking. None of these little armor plates actually work, as we can see. You're just cutting right through the glass. But I actually really like the look of this vehicle. It's got this plow on the front. It's got a lot of cool designs. I just hate the back of it. It looks so goofy on the rear. I don't know why Rockstar made the back look so funky. So that's the only part I don't love about the Slam Van, but the rest of it is pretty cool. Now you might be asking why we have the Ruiner 2000 here when it's not an armored vehicle. It can't survive any explosions. Well, the reason why is very simple. If you register as a CEO and you make your way to CEO abilities or VIP work, you have fully loaded, which allows you to have a Ruiner 2000. And that Ruiner 2000 is incredibly well armored. It can survive literally like 20 explosions before it blows up. It's one of the most busted armored vehicles in the game. So while the Ruiner 2000 itself might not be too impressive, I think that with the fully loaded variant, it is a little busted, and that's why we have it in today's video. Then we arrive to actual armored vehicles like the Ruiner, or not the Ruiner, sorry, the Toreador. This thing is just a beast. It has a rocket boost. It has homing missiles on it. These are all the weaponized vehicles here that are armored. The Toreador is definitely the best of the bunch. As I said, has homing missiles, unlimited homing missiles, by the way. It's got a rocket boost. It can go underwater because it's a frickin' submarine too, and it's a 4-seater. Oh, also survives like 7 explosions. It's kind of crazy. It's cracked. It's one of the best armored weaponized vehicles in the game. It used to be able to use in missions. However, Rockstar changed that, which is a little bit disappointing, but in general, it's incredible. We also have the Ruiner, or not the Ruiner. God, my brain's dying. As I said, it's so late right now, but the Stromberg. Stromberg's incredible. It's basically a much cheaper version of the Toreador. If you are new to the game and you can't afford the Toreador, then I would say get the Stromberg. It comes with the missiles automatically equipped, and if you're like, what missiles? I don't see where they are. Well, that's because they pop out when you're driving the vehicle and you swap to the missile tab. It's pretty freaking sick. Not only that, but the Stromberg can survive upwards of 3 explosions. It's fairly maneuverable, and as I said, it's one of the cheapest weaponized vehicles in the game, so in general, I really like the Stromberg. I think it's an absolute beast, and I would highly recommend to consider picking it up if you're a newer player. Now we arrive to the final row of vehicles, and then we get to Imani Tech. So we have the Barrage. This is kind of like a pseudo-armored off-roader. There's not many vehicles like it, and I actually personally think that's really cool. The Barrage is nothing incredible in terms of like mines or anything. It doesn't get, you know, slick mines or any of those capabilities, but it does have a front-mounted minigun, and you can have a grenade launcher on the back, which is pretty cool. The Barrage is also surprisingly mobile, but it obviously doesn't feature too much armor, judging that it has literally no windows on the front. My favorite part about the Barrage is that it survives like, I think 10 or 12 homing missiles. It's actually quite a beefy vehicle. You wouldn't expect it, but yeah, as I said, a little disappointing that you can just shoot the person right in the head when they're driving it. But in general, Barrage is really cool. It's a great off-roader, and if you want some armor while off-roading, it's not a bad shout. We have the Chernobog, which is the largest vehicle in the game. Chernobog is, well, it's weird. That's what I'll say. I mean, it does have armor, but let's be honest, you're driving at a snail's pace, and you're usually sitting still to get the rockets to work. So in most situations, it doesn't really matter. The glass on the vehicle is not bulletproof, but because of the way it's designed, you're actually not driving the vehicle, or when you're like using the missiles, you're actually in this slot here, and it's almost impossible to shoot the person in it when they're driving. So it's kind of goofy. It's pretty cool though, and I actually really like the Chernobog. We have the RCV, most useless purchase in the game. It does not feature any bulletproof glass, which kind of sucks, as we can see. And not only that, but it's slow, and the only real capabilities it has is to tank like 1 or 2 missiles. But apart from that, I really would not recommend to get your hands on the RCV. It's a complete waste of money unless you want to spray some water at people. Woohoo! Then we arrive to the final list of vehicles, Imani Tech. There are so many different Imani Tech cars, capabilities, and mechanics in the game, and we are going to classify them real quickly. So let's start off with the semi-bulletproof class Imani Tech vehicles, as we were breaking into before with the base armored vehicles. Those vehicles all have bulletproof glass. That's not the case for Imani Tech cars. We can see the Buffalo STX does, however, the EVX or the Illusion does not, so that is something to keep in mind. But, you know, vehicles like the Champion or the Deity, the Jubilee, these vehicles do feature bulletproof glass, so that is something to keep in mind. So we'll be going over if they have bulletproof glass and what their capabilities are. Starting off with the Annis 300R. No, does not have bulletproof glass. It's a actually pretty fun vehicle. It's not like the best Imani Tech car, but it looks amazing. I love the Nissan Z. I love the designs going for it. It's probably my favorite looking Imani Tech car in the game, followed second by the Ocelot Virtue. Just a super fun vehicle. It can survive upwards of 10 homing missiles, as can every single Imani Tech vehicle here. The only difference is that it can only survive 4 sticky bombs, so something to keep in mind. That is the same case for the Illusion here. Same armor, same capabilities, just a larger vehicle, so depends really what profile you want. However, I don't really love it that much, because when we break into the Granger, it's just kind of a worse version. The Buffalo EVX is an electric Imani Tech vehicle, and for some reason Rockstar has given electric Imani Tech vehicles kind of the best capabilities. This car can survive upwards of 10 sticky bombs and 10 homing missiles, which is kind of incredible. And it also has an HSW variant, so you can get it incredibly fast as well. The EVX, I know a lot of people are like, oh, I don't like electric cars. I personally think it's really cool, and I can tell you that it is a great purchase. The Buffalo STX is what many people, including myself, consider to be the best Imani Tech vehicle in the game. It's only around $1.6 million. As we went over, it does feature that semi-bulletproof glass, which is really, really nice. It's actually really fast at 126 miles per hour. And as we went over, survives 10 homing missiles. It has a missile lock on jammer, and it also can survive 4 sticky bombs. It's a freaking beast, it's got everything going for it, and it's fairly inexpensive at a base price for what it is. The champion is like 3.6 million or something ridiculous. It's not worth the price when you have a faster Buffalo STX, which also features a better lap time. But I do like the champion. It's a much smaller vehicle. I love the look. I do think the champion looks better than the STX. It's just not a better vehicle in general. Armor-wise, the exact same. In fact, the Deity, the Jubilee, the Granger all feature the exact same armor as the Buffalo STX. The Deity and the Jubilee are just kind of, you know, sedan and SUV. I think the Jubilee is the best of the SUVs in the game. It goes around 118 miles per hour, which is pretty quick, and it does feature that semi-bulletproof glass. It's the most maneuverable, and I actually kind of like the look of it. It's obviously based off of a Rolls-Royce. The Granger is probably my favorite looking of the SUV styles. However, it's just not as fast as the Jubilee, and because of that, I don't really see much of a reason to buy it when the Jubilee exists, which is kind of better, if you ask me, especially because the Jubilee is like $980,000 or $1 million when the Granger's like $2 million. So for the price tag, just get the Jubilee. It's faster, it's better. It might not look as cool, but trust me, it's a better option. Now we have some of the newer Imani Tech changes in vehicles. First of all, we have the Greenwood. No bulletproof glass. In fact, it really doesn't have anything going for it. It's one of the most useless Imani Tech vehicles in terms of its capabilities. That doesn't mean it's bad. Even the worst Imani Tech vehicles can still survive. Again, 10 homing missiles, has a homing missile lock on jammer. It's a beast. It just is the worst in terms of capabilities when you're looking at armored Imani Tech vehicles, so it's kind of mediocre. We have the Stinger TT, which is the fastest Imani Tech vehicle in the game. In fact, not just Imani Tech, it's the fastest car in the game. It goes upwards of 167 miles per hour. It's ridiculous. Not only that, but it looks really cool. It's actually a fantastic vehicle to mess around with. It does not feature bulletproof glass, though, so something to keep in mind. Also, you can only get this speed if you have the HSW variant. If you're playing on PC like me, it's only around 131 miles per hour. The Obey Ominous EGT is another electric Imani Tech vehicle, which means, once again, 10 sticky bombs instead of the normal 4, 10 homing missiles, and it's also got really good acceleration. But as a downside, again, its glass is not bulletproof. It's a little bugged right now, but you can see from shooting the side glass, you can cut right through, no problems whatsoever. I just love the look of this car, but in general, its armor isn't anything incredible when it comes to bullet resistance, but if you don't ever want to die, the EGT is the way to go. However, I personally think that the EVX is just the best of the electric vehicles, if that's the route you're going for. Then we move on to an incredibly nice vehicle. This is the Paragon S. We were talking about the Paragon R before. I think the S is just a better version. Yes, the S does not have that bulletproof glass. We can see that my bullets are going right through all these panels. That's a little disappointing, but not only does this car look better, but again, it has that Imani Tech armor. So you have a missile homing lock on jammer, you have a 10 missile survivability against homing missiles, and 4 sticky bombs. That's just way better than being able to survive a little bit of gunfire. So that's kind of how I see it, and I think this is one of the coolest looking Imani Tech vehicles. It also handles great, has great customization. It's probably one of my favorite Imani Tech cars. That's what I'll say. We have the Patriot Mil-Spec, which does have semi-bulletproof glass, but it needs it because this thing is slow. It doesn't even go 100 miles per hour, and that glass is pretty mid, I'm not going to lie. The Mil-Spec is one of the worst Imani Tech vehicles in the game, if you ask me. It's slow. It only survives 4 sticky bombs, which really isn't that impressive, and I don't know, I just don't really like it that much. I wish it was better at off-roading, which brings us to an absolute beast at off-roading. Sure, it doesn't feature bulletproof glass, but the Terminus is the best off-roading vehicle in the game right now. It reaches a top speed of like 120. Not only that, but it has insane acceleration and handling, way better than you'd expect. It literally beats sports cars on my lap time test. And when you pair that with the fact that it also has a homing missile lock on jammer and all the other capabilities of an Imani Tech vehicle, it's kind of insane. And that brings us to the final armored vehicle in today's video, being the Ocelot Virtue. The Virtue is pretty fun. It's very fast at 120 miles per hour. It is a supercar, and you can get it for absolutely free if you participate in the first dose missions and then do the last dose missions for DAX, not only getting yourself a free Brigade 6x6, which is the Acid Lab, but also getting a free Ocelot Virtue, so kind of a win-win. The Ocelot Virtue is definitely a really good choice, and it's probably one of my favorite Imani Tech cars in the game. As I said, it's fast, it features really good armor, and it's an electric vehicle, so once again, 10 sticky bombs, 10 homing missiles. So yeah, pretty impressive. If any of you were wondering, I did not have a script for today's video. Everything that I said was off of my mind. So if you wanted to question how dedicated I am to my craft on GTA, well, now you can know. If my driving seems to suck to you, as I said, I've been up for the last 25 plus hours, so my brain is pretty dead. Hopefully you enjoyed today's video. If you'd like to see more like it, please consider smashing that subscribe button down below, because these take a lot of effort. But as always, I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye!